If content is king in marketing, then storytelling is queen. That means you've got to be good at telling the right story. And today, our marketing experts have a twist on what that right story might be. Joining us is Jesse Flores of Super Web Pros, Seth Goetz of Symposia Labs, and Paul Schmidt from Unodus Multimedia. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Julie, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So we've all heard that storytelling is a huge part of marketing. We probably talk about this all the time, but most people tend to tell their own story, perhaps painting themselves as the hero. Seth, how impactful is it to actually tell the client's story instead of your own?
Our clients have their own story, that they're telling themselves, their own story, the dialogue that's going on inside their heads. And if you can actually tap into that, if you can actually connect with what they're thinking, the questions they have, the issues they have, the problems they have, you can be so much more impactful. There's a very old statement in marketing that people don't want a drill, they actually want a hole. And so the more you talk about your product, your service, what you do, how you do it, all that stuff is relevant, but it's not what they actually want to hear. If you want to touch them, if you want to reach out and you want to make impactful to them, you've got to step inside their head, in their worries, their fears. There's a statement that I've always liked, that you can't truly market to somebody until you can tell what keeps them awake at night, staring up at the ceiling, worrying. If you know that answer, if you know what the problems they're facing, and you tell a story around that, with your service or product as the solution, that is impactful.
That's so true, Seth. All right. So businesses hear this all the time, tell your story, but actually you're saying tell your client's story with you as the hero. You're going to solve what's keeping them up at night.
Correct.
The biggest part of storytelling is knowing your why. Simon Sinek became famous for his books and courses, Start with Why, Find Your Why. When it comes to storytelling, Paul, you preach this all the time. What does it mean to know your why?
This is something that I've actually ingrained into our mission statement as a company, and it does stem from Simon Sinek and that book, Start Your Why. But so I break it down into a couple of parts. First is like what we talked about is knowing your why. Now, your organization has a mission and a vision to move forward and to gain this audience or to reach an audience, and that's got to come first. If you can't explain your why through that mission and vision, then you can't promote it. You can't inform or educate the people about what you do because you really can't explain it. So what ends up happening is that the message gets watered down or drowned out. And, as we've been talking about with all these platforms, the signal versus the noise ratio is especially high. So you have to know what you're about to bring anyone else you want to get to in. So the second part of this why aspect is the documentation of why, or documenting your why. Now that you know who you are and what you do as an organization and can explain it, your next step is the how and the where. How are you going to explain this, and where are you going to put it out there to? So how are you going to document, how are you going to document the people and places that are impacted or are doing the impacting within your organization by the mission you set out there, and where are you going to obviously display this? So where will people see all of this information? So the why here is really the core foundation of any of the messaging that you do.
Well, and I love, Paul, that you brought in the where as well, because Jesse, you've mentioned that empathy and the storytelling can be good for SEO. What? Tell us more about this. How is empathy good for search engine optimization?
Yeah, great question. So I alluded to this a little bit last week. So one of the main ways that you can, at least in the digital world, one of the main ways that you can demonstrate some of your empathy is by providing content that your customers care about that helps them solve problems. And in fact, one of the things we talk with folks all the time when we are putting together content strategies, say, I don't know what to write about. And it's really easy. Just go ask the sales guy what questions he gets asked all the time. Or if you're the business owner, what questions do you get asked all the time? because those are the things that you should be talking about. And you might say, okay, well, everybody else already has all these other posts on this too, but that doesn't matter, because back to what Paul was saying, your why is going to be different than someone else's why. And the DNA of your why is going to be different than somebody else's. And so if that person is on your site or reading your content with your perspective and your rationale, it's going to have a different flavor than any of the other kinds of listicles or articles or briefs that are put together that are out there. And so it's really important that if you have a strong why, and if you've bought into the idea of your customer story, as Seth alluded to, that you then put together a content plan. Well, and here's the thing, as you put together more content, more meaningful content, more engaging content, that gets indexed. It gets indexed in search engines, and overall, the next person searching for the answer to the questions that you've already solved, you start to show up. And ultimately, what ends up happening is your demonstration of your care and empathy for your customer story, the questions and comments and concerns that they have, which get put together on your blog or YouTube channel, ultimately reflect in Google eventually.
And you know, the only thing that is better than a content plan, a good content plan, is content that can be repurposed or serve multiple purposes like you're describing. We can capture your why, whether it's in video or in marketing messages, and then making sure it's showing up in SEO. What a win-win. All right. Thanks all of you for joining us. Check out all 3 of our episodes on how to create the best user experience. You'll find them all on our website, expertconnections.tv. Just click the link for Marketing Connections. You can also find us on YouTube. Check us out and subscribe.